The controversial legacy of Alexander Haig, 10 shocking and scandalous facts. Alexander Haig, a four-star U.S. Army general and diplomat, was known for his commanding presence and ability to navigate political intrigue during tumultuous times. Rising to prominence as a military leader and eventually serving as Secretary of State under President Ronald Reagan, Haig's career was full of controversial moments, power struggles, and unforgettable quotes. Here are 10 of the most scandalous and interesting facts about his life, career, and influence. Fact number 1. A military mindset from childhood, Haig's early life and personal connections. Born on December 2, 1924, in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania, Alexander Haig grew up in a devout Catholic family, where discipline and structure shaped his worldview. His father, a prominent lawyer and amateur boxer, died suddenly of cancer in 1933, leaving Haig's mother, Regina, to raise 3 children. Her strict parenting fostered an atmosphere of responsibility and duty that deeply influenced young Alexander. Following in the footsteps of his older brother, Frank Haig, Alexander pursued a military career. Frank, a West Point graduate and Army officer, inspired Alexander's enrollment at the U.S. Military Academy, where he graduated in 1947. His military career spanned decades, during which he earned numerous commendations, including the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and the Purple Heart for his bravery during the Korean and Vietnam Wars. Haig ultimately rose to the rank of 4-star general, cementing his reputation as one of the most accomplished military leaders of his era. His final post in uniform was as Supreme Allied Commander Europe from 1974 to 1979, where he oversaw NATO forces. His focus on discipline, order, and command authority, shaped by his early education and upbringing, remained hallmarks of his leadership throughout his military and political careers. In 1950, Haig married Patricia Antoinette Fox, who came from a military family herself. Together, they had 3 children, Alexander Jr., Barbara, and Brian. Patricia, known for her reserved nature, acted as a stabilizing influence on Haig's often volatile temperament. Their marriage, though lasting for decades, was marked by challenges, as Haig's intense focus on his career frequently caused tension at home. Number 2. I'm in control here, the fallout of Reagan's assassination attempt. On March 30, 1981, an assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan thrust Alexander Haig into a whirlwind of controversy. With Vice President George H.W. Bush flying back to Washington, chaos ensued. As Secretary of State, Haig held a press conference and famously declared, "I am in control here," which was perceived as a power grab. Haig later clarified that he was referring to his role in the crisis management framework, not presidential succession. However, the public and political backlash was immediate, with many accusing him of undermining the Constitution. His words sowed distrust within the Reagan administration, particularly with Bush and other senior officials. Reagan's chief of staff, James Baker, privately remarked, "Haig just blew it." This incident left a lasting scar on Haig's political career, feeding rumors that he sought to position himself as a shadow president. Number 3. The Nixon Connection, Haig's role in Watergate. In 1973, Haig was appointed Nixon's chief of staff during the unraveling Watergate scandal. He was brought in to restore order amid growing turmoil. During Nixon's final days, Haig functioned as the bridge between the embattled president and senior officials, reportedly helping Nixon draft his resignation speech. Rumors persisted that Haig pressured Nixon to resign for the sake of national stability, though Haig denied manipulating the situation. Bob Woodward's The Final Days portrays Haig as a pragmatic figure navigating Nixon's descent into paranoia. The toxic environment extended to his relationships with colleagues, particularly with Henry Kissinger, who privately referred to Nixon as "our drunken friend." While some saw Haig as a stabilizing force, others criticized him for leveraging Nixon's weakness to advance his own interests. Number 4. Questionable loyalty, rumors of political backstabbing. Haig's reputation for ambition often left colleagues wary of his intentions. According to Seymour Hersh's The Price of Power, Haig actively sought to sideline his political rivals, including undermining Vice President George H.W. Bush's credibility in internal cabinet matters. Some insiders alleged that Haig deliberately delayed passing key information to Bush during crises, subtly positioning himself as indispensable to the Reagan administration. His relationship with Reagan's chief of staff, James Baker, was also tense, with Baker reportedly describing Haig as someone always playing five-dimensional chess. Despite the accusations, Haig defended his actions as driven by duty to the nation, stating, "Loyalty to the mission must come above all personal alliances." Number 5. Involvement in the CIA's Chile operations. Declassified CIA documents from the 1990s reveal that Haig was privy to discussions about covert operations in Chile, although he denied any hands-on involvement. Reports indicate that Haig attended high-level meetings where strategies to destabilize Salvador Allende's government were discussed, reflecting his alignment with the Nixon administration's anti-communist agenda. Allegedly, Haig was also aware of funding channel to right-wing Chilean factions and paramilitary groups, raising further ethical concerns. While Kissinger took the public spotlight, Haig's role in these secretive operations remained largely in the shadows. These revelations later fueled criticism that Haig prioritized Cold War objectives at the expense of democracy and human rights abroad. Number 6. Clash with Margaret Thatcher over the Falklands War. In 1982, Haig embarked on shuttle diplomacy to mediate the Falklands War between Argentina and the United Kingdom. His efforts were criticized as ineffective and even counterproductive. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher reportedly distrusted Haig, accusing him of being too accommodating toward Argentina in the early stages of the conflict. Thatcher later wrote in her memoirs that Haig's involvement was unwelcome meddling. Haig's failure to prevent the conflict not only damaged US-UK relations but also reinforced the perception that his diplomatic skills were insufficient for high-stakes negotiations. Number 7. A presidential ambition cut short. In 1988, Haig launched a campaign for the Republican presidential nomination, but his blunt rhetoric quickly alienated voters. During a debate, he controversially referred to George H.W. Bush as a wimp, criticizing what he saw as a lack of leadership. Haig's campaign, plagued by awkward public appearances and strategic missteps, faltered early. Facing low poll numbers, he withdrew from the race and endorsed Senator Bob Dole. The failed campaign highlighted Haig's limitations as a politician, reinforcing his image as a military leader unsuited for public office. Number 8. The Iran hostage crisis, Haig's role in negotiations. Though Haig was not Secretary of State during the Iran hostage crisis, he inherited the aftermath upon joining the Reagan administration. There were high expectations that he would secure compensation for the hostages, but Haig's focus on asserting control within the cabinet overshadowed these efforts. Critics accused him of neglecting the crisis in favor of consolidating his influence. Some speculated that Haig's indifference toward resolving the issue was driven by personal ambition, further damaging his reputation among Reagan's inner circle. Number 9. Controversial military doctrine, advocating for nuclear weapons. Haig was a staunch advocate for aggressive military policies, including the use of tactical nuclear weapons during the Cold War. In a controversial speech, he described nuclear weapons as an extension of diplomacy, alarming European allies who feared such rhetoric could escalate tensions with the Soviet Union. Haig's hawkish stance drew sharp criticism from US allies and policymakers, who viewed his doctrine as reckless. His rigid approach to foreign policy reflected his military mindset but alienated those seeking diplomatic solutions to global conflicts. Number 10. Resignation and life after politics. Haig's tenure as Secretary of State ended abruptly in 1982 following a series of disagreements with Reagan's inner circle. He resigned, citing irreconcilable differences with Reagan's advisors, particularly James Baker and Michael Deaver, whom he accused of orchestrating his ouster. After leaving politics, Haig pursued a career as an author, lecturer, and corporate advisor. He published several memoirs, including Caveat, Realism, Reagan, and Foreign Policy, which offered his perspective on his time in government and reflected his enduring belief in the importance of a strong military. In his later years, Haig suffered from declining health. On February 20, 2010, he died at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, due to complications from a staphylococcal infection. He was 85 years old. Haig's death marked the end of a career that, while controversial, left a lasting mark on U.S. military and political history. True to his unapologetic nature, Haig once remarked, "I did what I thought was right, and history will judge me accordingly."